Hello, and welcome to a minisode of My Streaming Bubble, the podcast where I talk about the streamable media that I love with the people I tolerate. I am your TV watching and talking host, Jen, and I'm back. I'm back, Bubblies, and I've got clearly a new episode. So, that was so dumb. So I'm going to have a handful of minisodes covering found footage films for fall, for the month of October. I've never done like a theme month before, so this is like really exciting, which tells me I'm a boring ass person. But I decided I would give like a theme month a try. Hopefully I was kind of hoping that it would be easier for me to kind of plan what I was going to watch and record on, just kind of have some set titles. And it did until I decided I wanted to change it up, because during my pod prep, I've watched as many of some of my favorite found footage films, alliteration, as I could. And I realized, I like this one a little bit more than that one, so I might have to bump that one for this one. So I still am trying to decide which one that's going to be. That will be towards the end of the month. This episode, I knew exactly that I was going to cover this one, and it was going to be my first one. But yeah, so that's what today's minisode is going to be. You may have noticed a slight change in the introduction from the shows that I love to streamable media that I love. And that's just because I am changing recordings just a little bit. I want to focus like recordings with tolerables because I want to focus more on movies just for time and pod prep purposes. Shows are always still going to be on the table, always and forever, but they may end up being covered as a whole series and not season to season as I have done in the past. So just some small changes there. Nothing major, but since the podcast is called My Streaming Bubble, I felt I had to keep streamable in there somewhere. And aside from the fact that streamers are just kind of doing everything they can to just piss everybody off, I thought for a hot second just changing to the DVDs that I can get from the library that I love or something. So that was a bit much, but it was one that had crossed my mind. So, but yeah, what I'm going to be discussing today, I'm trying really hard not to say real quick because we all know that can be a fucking lie. But the movie I'm talking about today is got to be one of the newer found footage films that I absolutely love. When I first watched it, I had no idea that it was even a found footage movie. I knew the movie existed. It started David D. I apologize, I can't pronounce the name and I don't have it written out in front of me. Because if I at least had it written out in front of me, I could do my best to sound it out. But I am not to that point. I have it written down somewhere, but I just don't have that page up. Poor me. The movie that I will be talking about today, as I said, it's a newer found footage film. It came out in 2023. I had no idea that it was. So when I hit play, I just got all sorts of fucking giddy and I was like, I love it already. So, and that movie is Late Night with the Devil. So we'll go ahead and hit up some of the content warnings and everything. But consider this your official spoiler warning. All right, so Late Night with the Devil was written by Colin Cairns and Cameron Cairns, and it was directed by Cameron and Colin Cairns. It stars David Dastmalchian. Ooh, I don't think I know his last name has been pronounced, but I don't think I've ever heard it or committed it to memory. My apologies, David. Let's see who else. It's Laura Gordon as June Ross Mitchell, also with her last name, one of her last names being Ross. I'm a little bit of a sucker for because that's my maiden name. Anyway, Ian Bliss as Carmichael Haig and Faisal Bazi as Christu, Ingrid Torelli as Lily, Reese Aturi as Gus, Josh Kwong-Tart as Leo Fisk. Oh, and Georgina Haig as Madeline Piper. Oh, there's, a handful of folks. And Stephen Muzakis as Sandor Dabo. And a handful of other folks. All right, so content warning for this, Satanism? Satan? Let's see, mentions of human sacrifice, but we don't see any of that. I think that's it. Maybe just a dash of the racism because Leo called Gus a racial slur for Italians, which was not very nice, Leo. Okay. I think that's it. Cults. All that kind of stuff. All right, so the IMDb synopsis. A live television broadcast in 1977 goes horribly wrong, unleashing evil into the nation's living rooms. And what I says about this movie, I didn't have anything. I've watched this movie so many times, I no longer have like my own synopsis for it. I just fucking love it. All right. And I already gave writing credits, directing credits, and the actors. Oh, and it is available to stream on various streamers. But I'm mad at them, so I'm not going to say their names. Y'all can Google. Or you can go to your local library and check out the DVD. Or you can download the Canopy app, Kanopy. It is a free streaming app that you can access with your library card. You can get it on mobile, and Roku, I believe, has it, and probably a handful of smart TVs, because I think we have it on our Samsung. And that's just a smart TV, but you know what it is. So one of the last times I checked, it was on there. So you can watch it for free. You can stream it for free through Canopy, just with your library card, which is pretty fucking awesome. Plus, Canopy has a nice selection of things. Not a whole hell of a lot of new stuff, but that's all right. It looks like they do have a lot of documentaries, a lot of LGBTQ stories, Black voices, kind of those type of categories. And a decent collection. I'm going to be honest, when I first looked at Canopy, I wasn't expecting a whole heck of a lot, but I was pretty pleasantly surprised with with the size of their catalog. Granted, it's not all stuff that I would personally watch, but the few people I've mentioned it to at work through the library, because they're checking out DVDs like documentaries, and I tell them about it, tell them how to access it and everything, and people are pretty excited about it. It's got a lot of like BBC stuff. It's got a handful of PBS stuff and kids like shows and shit for like from PBS, like Caillou. So it's fantastic. So download it, use it, and support your local library. Okay. That was a little more than I planned on. I did not mean to go off on about Canopy like that, but you know, it needs to be said. More people should know about it. All right. Late Night with the Devil. So why did I pick this movie as one of my top favorite found footage films for fall? Like I said, this came out in 2023. When I first watched it, I didn't know that it was found footage. So as soon as the narrator started in and talking about the 70s and everything, gives us that whole introduction to the TV series that Jack is on, gives us background about Jack and Madeline and the cult and everything. Like that intro pretty much lays out the entire movie, almost. So then when it was like, and here is never before seen footage from that last night that he had done the interview or whatever, I was like, yay, it's found footage. I'm so excited. So one of the reasons why I love it is just that 70s aesthetic. For some reason, I'm kind of a dork for some of the 70s aesthetic, no matter how good or how bad or how accurate or inaccurate it is. There's just kind of something about it. I don't know. Maybe it reminds me of like my parents' basement with like shag carpet and like weird wood furniture and weird muted colors. Not necessarily muted, but you know what I mean. But I loved it. And I loved how David plays kind of this like Midwest nice, because I think Haig says something to him about that. But just kind of under the surface, and maybe it was a lot more obvious for everyone else, but I didn't really pick up on how like fame hungry, like what a fame hungry asshole he was. Obviously, he makes a deal with the cult, ends up basically sacrificing his wife. She dies, and they even mention in that intro part about his relentlessness to be number one. But I don't know. I think David is just such a cutie patootie and I love him so much. And so maybe I wasn't ready to hear that he was playing an unsavory character. So unfortunately, it took me way too many watches to kind of realize that. Because I was like, oh, I love him. He's so sweet. So I loved how he kind of balanced that Midwest nice, but then you see kind of that scuzzier side when he's like talking to Leo, the night that Jack Delroy interviewed the fucking devil. Like the first time I watched it and he said swears, I was like, no, that's naughty. For whatever reason, I thought Jack Delroy was like a nice guy. Clearly he wasn't. And again, I blame it all on David. And just how I perceive him. But he does a really good job kind of going back and forth with being like that charming, nice guy, Midwest TV host to just scuzzy, fame-hungry douchebag. And I loved it. The Satanism, because of course, Late Night with the Devil, I'm right in the title. And I loved this Anton LaVey-esque Satanist cult leader. I just thought that was kind of a nice little tie-in versus creating a character not based on anybody, if that makes sense. Like obviously this character isn't the real Anton LaVey, but definitely like LaVey vibes. So I don't know why I just got a huge, like, it just tickled me, but it did. I'm such a fucking slut for found footage films. I did not care at all. And so we got the cult leader, the Satanist, we'll call him the Satanist, because what was his name again? Sandor Dabo. So Sandor Dabo was the leader of the cult, the Satanist group that Lily was rescued from. But at the same time, we know that Jack has been a part of like this cult, the Grove, since like his radio days. So it sounds like for a while. So I just couldn't help but wonder, like, did Jack and maybe any of the other cult members know that they were doing like devil worship, or did they think they were just like in kind of your run-of-the-mill basic cult, one leader that you give all your money to that assaults all the girls and women? Or like I said, or did they know? Did Jack know who he was worshiping through the cult? Because he seemed like, especially at the end, he definitely realized that he did make some, like, obviously he made some sort of deal with this cult. And then Madeline dies suddenly, or gets, lung cancer as a non-smoker in the 70s, which is, fiction. Just kidding. And So she dies. Obviously, I think we as the viewers were able to quickly surmise that, yes, she was a sacrifice. Jack may not have known that she was going to be the sacrifice. He probably knew he had to sacrifice something, but didn't realize it was going to end up being his wife. So it kind of maybe, it like took him by surprise, it seemed like. So with all this wheeling and dealing, again, did he realize that it was like Satan or Satan adjacent? Do you think Jack, if it was clear that it was a Satanist cult, the Grove, do you think Jack would have still been a part of it or had returned to it or asked for its assistance in making him number one? I don't know. And originally I wanted to say no because David's such a sweetheart. But Jack is a little sketchier, right? So quite possibly. Although there were times throughout the movie, throughout this broadcast, that he looked surprised, like genuinely surprised. Most, like when they have Lily and she channels Mr. Wriggles, he looks utterly shocked there. Because I don't think he was expecting anything like that. He was expecting something neat, but not that neat. So, but the other time that he looked genuinely surprised was near the end, and they're rewatching the clip, and he has them pause and then click, 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 frame by frame until he saw the ghost of his dead wife. And he sits back and he just looks dumbfounded, but also like he's starting to kind of put it all together. Yeah. So was Jack like a full-fledged Satanist or just cult member? Like they made it sound like just kind of more like just associated with it, but not necessarily like a worshiper or whatever, I think. But clearly, by the end of the movie and the way everything plays out, it led me to believe that the Grove was worshiping Alabraxis as well as Xandor and his Satan cult. Abracadabra. Sorry, that was fun. That was a fun line when Mr. Wriggles used it on Carmichael. And that dude is a giant piece of shit. A great character to kind of like, I wouldn't say like I hated Carmichael, but I didn't care for him a whole heck of a lot. But I did enjoy his character and kind of bringing that naysaying balance to this episode of Night Owls. But he's also kind of gross, right? Because he's asking Jack about the Grove and the cult and when can Carmichael come out and meet them and the orgies, fucking gross, dude. Ew. And just his like condescending ways. And I did like how in the movie, both Dr. June and Lily kind of call him out for it. That's always nice to see. Just someone's assholery just being called out and they're like, you're a fucking asshole. What's the point of us being here if you're just going to sit there and be a fucking dick? And Carmichael's whole thing about paying like $250,000, $500,000 or whatever to try and recreate a possession or a haunting or whatever and throwing the check out here and there and just trying to be like a big shot. And with with Carmichael, I do have to say I loved the quick little inclusion of the Warrens. I know that they have all been like debunked and everything, and like that's fine. And it's a little bit of a bummer, but because I read Amityville Horror at a way too young of an age, so I grew up thinking like they were legit. But I did love that they kind of threw in the Amityville house and everything. I just thought that was fun. I was like, yay, that's so cool. And then his research group, if piss or something. It's not what it's called. Yeah, so Carmichael was just a great character to have. Totally douchey, totally an asshole, naysaying, condescending, and patronizing. And just, yeah, all around, just got to one up everyone. He's got to be the one to be like, see, it wasn't this or da, da, da. Like he's just a dick. Oh, and speaking of Carmichael, because he does have like a small wardrobe change, kind of a little Mr. Rogers with changing his jacket and all, because of Christu. Now, with Christu, you kind of just get the sense that, yeah, he's all for show, right? Like he's not a quote real psychic, empath, telepath, whatever. And that the way he got to like Peterman, all using very common tricks and tactics by quote psychics. Especially on like a large stage like that, right? Like I feel like true psychics aren't really going to be looking for the fortune and glory. Like they'll do their thing and they'll do it more humbly. That's just my opinion. And not just psychics, but anyone that's like legit amazing at their craft. I don't know. It's just a weird thing that I have. But with Christu, so, you know, I kind of got the sense that like, all right, you know, he seems to be maybe full of shit. That whole Peterman bit with Barry, I thought that was just hysterical. But Christu didn't really seem to be in on that bit. And then there was Christu and the two women, the mom and the daughter, and talking about their dead son/brother and how that all seemed very real and everything. And then we find out later, Carmichael asked him like, oh, like, did you have to fill anything out or answer any questions? And they're like, yeah, actually we did. It's crazy you would ask that. And actually it was that lady. So then you get more of that sense of like, okay, so that part was bullshit. But he does channel Madeline, right? Or gets that sense of her presence. And the way Jack just completely ignores it, disregards it. Like first time I watched it, I didn't know who the fuck Minnie was. I thought it was someone reaching out to the audience or something. So when Jack revealed later that that was his secret nickname for his wife, I was like, oh shit, that makes a lot of sense. Also in the beginning, kind of intro part with the narrator in that clip where Madeline comes on the show and she's like, oh, how he's so funny and sweet. How do you not fall in love with that? She mouths, I love you. He mouths it back and he does mouth Minnie. I can't remember if that actually shows up on the captions or not. Must not have. Otherwise I would have caught it. Either way, it was all right there. But I missed it the first time I watched it. And then just kind of everything else that happens to Christu. So he's got this, he's receiving a message from Minnie. It's really intense. He can't handle it. His eyes roll back and it's like this fleshy eye roll. I loved the subtlety and the creepy and ickiness of it. I loved it. It's like you almost are expecting something big to happen with him in that moment. And it was almost like a blink and I missed it with the way the fleshy eye roll went. And oh, that was so gross. And I loved it so much. But since he was able to pick up on Madeline being there, is he really part psychic? You know, whether he's as great as he may advertise, or does he just have like a touch of the psychicness, just enough to receive that message? Or was he more or less selected because out of everyone on that stage in that moment between Christu, Jack, and, well, Carmichael hadn't come out yet, he was the one that would be most sensitive since he's playing a psychic? And that's if he's like fake being a psychic. I don't know. So with Christu, I don't really know where I land with him. If he's a real psychic or a made-for-TV psychic or a little bit of both. Like, does he have true psychic abilities and decided he's just going to profit off of them? But after that whole thing with Minnie, you know, he's not looking well and getting kind of sweaty and just like uncomfortable. And then, he does like the gagging, the regurgitating and spitting like the black goo and everything all over. And it gets on Carmichael's jacket. And he's like, good God, man. With no care whatsoever to anyone's well-being other than just his jacket and where he got it and how he had it. But all of that with Christu and the spewing the black goo was super gross. I will say that I didn't care for how it looked to be very CGI, especially when Christu looks at the camera and all the goo comes shooting towards the camera. I would say like that is probably one of my more like, oh, kind of moments of the movie. Practical over CGI, I guess. Practical effects over CGI. Now, the whole worm thing with Gus looked incredibly practical, and it was super fucking gross when he's pulling the worm out of his neck, and then he like rips open his stomach, and they're all like, bleh. And then the giant worm thing coming out of his eye. Like, that was super gross, and I loved it, and it looked very like practical effect. So I really, really appreciate that. And by that point, I had already forgotten about the whole Christu CGI black goo stuff. So that's my take on Christu and special effects. Like, and all the electricity zapping and everything, like, obviously that's going to be computer generated or whatever. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. It was just the way that the black goo looked when it was coming towards the camera that really kind of took me out for that half a second. But then, yeah, we find out Christu died on his way to the hospital because he just gooed out from everywhere all over the place, which is gross. And probably a really nasty mess in the ambulance. Because I think they said he died on his way. Like, he hadn't even made it to the hospital. Oh, another quick thing about Jack not being such a, quote, nice guy that I thought or hoped he was going to be was after Christu's whole thing with the audience, and we first meet Carmichael. They're sitting on the stage with Jack, and they kind of start getting into it, right? They're arguing over whether or not Christu's legit and this and that. And Jack gets this smug little smile on his face, like, yes, this is what I want. The conflict, the ratings. So that was like another clue that he is kind of scuzzy. He just cares about the ratings. He just wants to be number one. He needs to beat Johnny Carson. And honey, that was never going to happen, devil or not. Sorry, you were never going to beat Johnny Carson. And I think there were probably a couple more moments like that really truly showed Jack's real colors, like who he was, and not just this face on the TV screen of like, oh, I'm such a sweet guy. No, he's not. And I need to stop thinking that he was. And then we meet June and Lily, and then we get the story with Abraxas and Xandor and all of that stuff. And I really liked how that was done too. I liked that we got these little like, here's a short clip to fill us in. And that's like literally what they are. And I loved it. I don't know why, but it just tickled me. I'm just such a fucking dork for this movie. And then bringing those two out and starting to talk about June's research and a little bit of kind of what Lily experiences with Mr. Wriggles and everything. But I loved that when they first get on stage and sit down and Jack's all like, thank you for joining us today. And Lily's deadpanning right into the camera and she's like, thank you for joining us. And it's like, oh shit, girl is creepy. I love it. And then another part that kind of made me laugh during June and Lily's bit was they mentioned demon possession. And she's like, we prefer psychic infestation. And I just couldn't help it. Me being a smart ass, I was like, whoa. I've never heard psychic infestation, but I loved that. I just love that they used it. It does just seem kind of, quote, woke. I don't know. It's so fucking dumb. But I get the biggest dumb kick out of it. It's hilarious. And I also have to say that I loved it when Jack's like, so June, you call yourself a doctor of blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I call myself that because that's what I fucking am. Atta girl. Don't fucking let them dull your shine. You worked hard for that PhD. You got it. They need to fucking respect it. So I loved that, especially for women like in the 70s. Not to say women didn't speak out in the 70s, but I feel like it just wasn't done to the extent like it is now, right? Like we have come a long way of not putting up with white men's bullshit. So good on Dr. June Ross. Oh shit, what was her last name? Mitchell. Fucking hell. Ross, that's all that matters. So I liked kind of their introduction and neither of them taking shit from Jack or Carmichael. And then doing the little display where Lily lets Mr. Wriggles out and psychic infestationing starts to happen and she's levitating. And I loved kind of like that demon voice over the actress's voice, Lily's voice. And it almost seemed like there were times where the demon voice came in more clear than Lily's voice and other times where Lily's voice was more prominent than the demon voice. So that kind of back and forth, I liked it. I feel like that kind of shows that back and forth of being psychically infested, where maybe Lily is trying to fight for control a little bit. Or maybe not. Maybe there is no more Lily. Maybe maybe letting Lily live, god damn, was part of Abraxas's plan. Because I think that's even mentioned maybe in the little video that June provides to get us all caught up. So yeah, does Lily even exist anymore at this point? Or is it Mr. Wriggles playing Lily? You know what I mean? So I like not having the answers to some of these questions. I think it just makes it that much more fun. But they're doing their little psychic infestationing for the crowd, for the audience. And then at one point, this really fucking bothered me. I don't know why, but June is sitting there trying to be like, yes, I study her, but I also love her. I care about her, trying to give her, like a happy, healthy family, blah, blah, blah. But then she slaps her or Mr. Wriggles, whatever the fuck you want to call it. But she slapped this little girl across the face as if this was her first time doing any of that. And it's like, maybe it was the pressures of being on TV and not being able to control the situation because she told Jack, I don't want to do this. This is not a good idea. Things have not been going well the last couple of days with her, this and that. So possibly why she did it was just kind of frustration, lack of control, trying to regain control over a situation she has no control over. But I just hated it. I hated that she fucking slapped her. I was like, you love her so much. You know what she's going through. You know what you're doing, apparently, Miss PhD. But then you fucking slap her? Ugh. The 70s, man. All right. I think I need to take a minute because I got a little too worked up on that one. I didn't realize how much that bothered me until I started talking about how much it bothered me. All right. So then, so all of this happens and then we get to Carmichael and Gus and the whole worms thing and Carmichael, hypnotizing most of the audience, some people at home and everyone all these people saw the whole worm thing, but Lily never saw it because you could hear her like, why is Gus acting so funny? And my first time watching it, I was like, what are you not seeing, girl? Like, there are worms coming out of this man's body. Like, that's fucked. But then, on playback, it wasn't real. It was Carmichael. And I know early at the beginning of the film, they talk about how he had broken some record for most hypnotized people or some shit, or hypnotizing people like through the television and whatnot. So he puts on this whole big show of his abilities to be like, and that's what these ladies did. Like, I don't mean to sound rude, but there was nothing about Dr. June or Lily to suggest that that is something that they're able to do or would even want to do. So a lot of projecting there from Carmichael. But near the end of that, when the worm starts coming out of Gus's eyeball, and Carmichael goes to try and wake him with the snap, and it's not working, and he snaps a couple of times, he looks legitimately frightened. And he says, like, this wasn't supposed to happen. Now, do you think that it really was not supposed to happen? That maybe that part got a little too carried away? Could that have been Mr. Wriggles just adding a little dash of psychic infestation into Carmichael's little show? Because it's never mentioned again. They don't even talk about how he sounded a little frightened or anything. Then he pulls the dreamer here awake, which I thought was actually kind of cool. And then just plays it off like, yeah, see, look at me. I'm such an amazing magician. But I couldn't help but wonder if at some point he didn't lose control and Mr. Wriggles kind of took over a little bit. And then after that, they review the footage from Lily being possessed, and that's when they find the ghost of Jack's wife, Madeline. And then after that, all fucking hell breaks loose. And I loved it. From just kind of the electric shocks that's going on, the electricity zapping and everything. Poor Lily just being like, being psychically infested and shooting like Sith electricity out of her hands and shit to the TV, to the lights and everything. And then her head splits open and it's all like fiery and creepy and gross. And, well, I guess not really gross, but creepy and weird. And I loved it. And then she kills Gus. And then she kills Dr. June, which I thought that was pretty fucking wicked, the way Dr. June went out. Trying to use her talisman or whatever to protect her, to bring Lily back. Abraxas being like, haha, fuck you. And then like slits her neck with the necklace. Like, oh my God, that was so cool. But the best was her setting fire to Carmichael Haig, because his little fair weather ass is all like, oh, Dark Lord, blah, 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 I serve you and this and that. And, just kissing its ass. Like, dude, relax. You're not getting into the Grove and you're not going to their orgies. Stop being fucking weird. And then I can't remember if if Lily or whatever says anything, but when Carmichael pulls out the check, because he's gonna get it, because, oh, look at that, they won. And then just the abracadabra and him burning was amazing and satisfying. And I really appreciated that. And there is a lot of foreshadowing in this movie, and that's fine. Because, let's see, there's Gus saying something to Carmichael about like, oh, my wife really likes my head. I hope I don't lose it. And granted, he technically kept his head. It's just on backwards now. There was Jack said something about Carmichael being like all wax, no spark or something, indicating the melting. And then, of course, just the entire beginning, pretty much telling us about what was about to happen. And when it comes to the demon Abraxas, I don't know a lot about this deity, this entity, but they do seem to have existed throughout literature, throughout various cultures, religions, in various forms and whatnot. Like, not like physical forms. I think he's pretty much depicted similarly throughout all of them, or where he's mentioned. But, the slight variations from religious text to religious text, or just literature to literature. So, but I did like that because Carmichael says something about the demon Abraxas and how it craves an audience, and this is exactly what it wants. And I really like that because that does really seem to fit with how the movie ends, right? Because all hell's breaking loose, everyone's running, Gus and Carmichael and June are all dead, and Jack's trying to get away, and Leo pulls him into the backstage area. And then, Abraxas / Lily / Mr. Wriggles or whatever is like, looks in the camera and then just kind of flies at it. And then it's like, we can assume that it is in the camera. It has power over electricity, electronics, stuff like that. So that's what we see, because that is the projection that Abraxas gives us, right? So the whole thing with Jack basically in rerun hell, which I loved that because of his relentless pursuit to be number one and getting stuck in this, like I said, rerun hell, and then yelling, turn it off, thinking that was going to stop it. So I love that kind of little turn for him, I guess. A kind of careful what you wish for type thing. So we see all of that, and I am convinced that that is Abraxas showing us what they are putting Jack through in that moment, from rerun hell to being with the cult and Xandor being there. And the guy in the really creepy, like, skeleton costume, I thought that person was going to play a bigger role throughout the movie because Jack draws attention to them, says like, oh, where'd you get you and Gus do the same, shop at the same costume place. But they didn't really do anything super creepy, but they were there in the end of this psychic infested reality. So I'm like, okay, so maybe that was like one of Abraxas's like followers or something, or just someone from the cult, just keeping an eye on everything and waiting for all hell to break loose. But I will say I was a little disappointed that character didn't come back or have a slightly bigger role. Maybe it was a red herring. I don't know. Because a lot of times I was looking for that person. And then the way they ran out when all hell started breaking loose, I was like, okay, so it's just a person in a costume. It's not really related to anything. And then they're there and then blah, blah, blah. So we see all of this. And then we get to the point where Jack gets to speak to Madeline. And she's like, oh, I was worried that they weren't going to let you see me. So I liked how that was worded versus let me see you or anything else, indicating that this cult or Abraxas, Satan, has that much control over Jack and allowing Jack or not allowing Jack to do certain things. So she pretty much lays it all out, exit mini stage left, and they promised you the world and all of this. So you made the deal. And then as everything kind of like progresses in that scene, and, Jack has like that sacrificial dagger or whatever. And Madeline's like, you know what you need to do. You got end the pain. And then he stabs her, and then it cuts back to reality, and he has killed Lily. And then kind of wakes up and sees just the chaos and the death all around on stage. You can hear the sirens coming in the background. You can hear saying, "Dreamer, here, awake," a couple of times, which was cute and pathetic. So I guess kind of my question, something I was wondering was that really the ghost of Madeline that he was talking to? Was it really Madeline the whole time? And did maybe Abraxas or any other psychic infestation happen to her to then trick Jack into killing her / Lily? Because with Lily having the ability to be like the conduit or whatever, the carrier for Abraxas, for Mr. Wriggles, it would seem to me that she would be able to, quote, kind of play that role in this false reality. So I don't know, because of course at first I was like, oh, he does get to actually speak to his wife, and we get the rest, get confirmation as to what all happened. Jack made a deal, his wife was the sacrifice, la la la. But then she's like, you know what you need to do? You need to kill me. What? She's already dead. What are you doing, Jack? What the fuck was that all about? Again, it could just be Abraxas manipulating the situation. So I couldn't help but wonder, like, was that the real Minnie? Maybe not. So that's pretty much going to be, I think that's going to be it. Let's see. That's pretty much all the notes that I had written down. And let's see. What else? Oh, kind of a stray bubble. So Miss Cleo James getting bumped so they could replay the clip in super slow-mo, saved her fucking life. So yay for that. Burnt toast theory, am I right? So, because there was a devil in there and she didn't have to stick around the studio and she could have just left. So good on ya. Happy for that. Happy for Miss Cleo James for getting bumped and having her life saved. All right. I'm trying to think if there was anything in IMDb trivia that was kind of worth sharing. Nothing that I can really think of that stands out. There's a lot more. If you're curious about a lot of the stuff, just read it yourself. I'm not going to sit here and read IMDb trivia at y'all. You don't want that. I don't really want that. So, all right. Well, that is going to be it for me today in my first episode back after about a month-long break, I think. I don't know. Time doesn't fucking exist in this timeline. Whatever. So it feels good to be back in front of the mic and recording episodes. I'll get to scheduling episodes, scheduling recordings with tolerables. So I'll have some folks back on the pod soon. But yeah, it's going to be found footage fall for this podcast. Let's see. What's my next one gonna be? Like I said, it's a fucking surprise for all of us. So let's see. The original lineup that I had for this little series themed episodes, it was gonna be Late Night with the Devil, The Devil's Pass, The Taking of Deborah Logan, and Host, surprisingly. I don't know how a lot of people feel about Host from 2020, but I was pleasantly surprised by it. However, I recently watched a couple other found footage films that I forgot how much I liked. Let me rephrase that. I forgot how much I fucking loved Deadstream. It is so funny and I absolutely love it. So I might have to bump one of these movies for Deadstream. And also I might have to bump one. It's gonna come down between Host and The Devil's Pass. Those two will, like, if a title is going to be bumped, it's going to be one or both of those. Because the other movie that I rewatched that I've really, really liked was Grave Encounters. I fucking loved that one when I first saw it. As someone who, I know this is not something that I should be saying out loud like ever, but I've seen like every single episode of fucking Ghost Adventures, and I've always fucking hated Zach Baggins. I've always thought he was like king of the douchebags and justice for Aaron, and Nick is whatever, no one cares. So when I watched Grave Encounters, the fact that this host seemed very Zach Baggins coded just cracked me the fuck up. So that's part of the reason why I was first really kind of hooked into that movie, and then I just love it. It's like I said, it is one of my favorites. But so is Deadstream. So now I don't know. And then there's the one with oh God, and then there's like Hell House. The first Hell House movie I really, really liked. The other two, the second and third one, were okay. I liked one a little bit more than the other, but with Hell House, it's just the clowns. Those are fucking terrifying ass clowns. So these are a lot of like the found footages that I've been watching kind of in preparation to do these recordings and just because I enjoy watching them. So I don't know. I will stick with The Taking of Deborah Logan. I will absolutely still record a mini bubble on that and have it posted. That should probably be the next one after this one while I sort out the other two. Okay. All right. So if you guys have any other suggestions on if you have like a preference on any of these other movies between The Devil's Pass, Host, Grave Encounters, Deadstream, and you want me to cover, you have a preference on what I should cover, let me know. Fucking hell. Let me know in the comments. Send an email to mystreamingbubble@gmail.com. Or just hit me up on pretty much on any of the socials. That would be Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. So just search My Streaming Bubble and I will pop on up there for you. And then also don't forget to check out the monthly podcast that I host with my podcast brain twin, Erin from It's a Fandom Thing. We cover mostly horror movies. We cover only horror movies, I believe. Except Strange Days. I wouldn't really consider that a horror movie. Anyway, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky, and you can listen on a podcast player near you. And for both and all those podcasts and all your favorite indie podcasts, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all of that kind of good stuff to show your support because we love that. Thank you. So until next time, my lovely bubblies, thank you all for listening and keep streaming. Goodbye. If you're enjoying this podcast, be sure to let me know by rating and reviewing on a podcast player near you and by sharing your favorite episodes with your friends, family, and mail carrier. Then be sure to follow me on all your favorite socials like Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. Just search My Streaming Bubble and I should pop on up there for ya. If you have suggestions on what I should stream in my bubble next or you want to be tolerated, send an email to mystreamingbubble@gmail.com. Looking for merch? Stop by my Redbubble store where you can find and buy My Streaming Bubble stickers, hats, shirts, and more. You can also head over to buymeacoffee.com and, well, buy me a coffee. Need more podcast me in your life? Then be sure to check out my other podcast, Twin It to Win It. That's a monthly podcast that I co-host with my podcast brain twin, Erin from It's a Fandom Thing, where we test our twinningness by trying to guess if we both feel the same way about different horror movies. You can find and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. And most importantly, you can listen, rate, review, and share from most podcast players. Thank you for your support and keep streaming. Goodbye.